Aloha. It's your favorite friend with questionable character, Aloha Mr. Han, coming to you this fine Friday evening, courtesy of our friends at From the 108. And of course, powered by Jack Daniels. Be having some later. So, wanted to do a collector's corner with a twist, so to speak. Recently announced that the Negro League stats will be counted as Major League Baseball stats. So I thought a fun thing to do is to highlight some of the players that I have that participated, I have autographed memorabilia from, that participated in the Negro League and also in MLB and are Hall of Famers. I don't have all of them, mind you, so, a guy like Josh Gibson, as an example, who is really a tragic figure. I don't say that lightly, because this is a guy who was called the Black Babe Ruth, and in some circles, Babe Ruth was called the White Josh Gibson, who had approximately 800 to 1,000 home runs, even though if you look at the stats maintained by the Negro Leagues, it was roughly 115 home runs that he had on record. But he played many games, like many exhibitions, barnstorming games, things of that nature. And the power, from everything I've seen and read, I should say read, I've never seen video or anything, the power was off the charts from Josh Gibson. And it's sad because he passed away in January of 47. There were some people who felt he should have been the first player to break the color barrier, but he was bypassed by Jackie Robinson. I guess they did not think that Josh Gibson had the greatest temperament to handle the challenges that would come based on what was going to happen starting in April of 47. Unfortunately, he passed away in January of 47. He never got to see Jackie Robinson, let alone any black players in the major leagues. Some of the guys I have here are very, very, very well known, historic, legendary Hall of Famers, and others are Negro Leaguers who never got their chance. I mean, think about it. Wouldn't you have loved to have seen a Satchel Paige in his prime pitch to a guy like Joe DiMaggio, Ted Williams, someone like that? I would have loved it. Wouldn't you have loved to have seen a guy like Josh Gibson have to face someone like Whitey Ford, as an example, in the World Series? I think that would have been fantastic. Or face, a Dizzy Dean, somebody of that ilk. I think it would have been incredible. Here we go. How would you like to have seen Josh Gibson, with all his power, square up against Bob Feller with all his power? I think that would have been incredible. I would have loved to have seen that, but unfortunately that's something we won't see, sadly. And I know there's a certain person out there who will remain nameless, Ken W., who talks about this guy being a jerk when he met him, and that being Ted Williams. But Ted Williams was one of the people who really, really pushed for inclusion of Negro League players in the Hall of Fame. There were several, but I think Williams's acceptance or induction speech in 1966, I believe it was, his induction speech talked about having those guys side by side with him in the Baseball Hall of Fame. If you ever get a chance, I believe it is on YouTube where you can go back and watch and listen to it. But so with that, just wanted to show some of the like I said, the memorabilia I have for certain Negro people who are in the Hall of Fame who participated in the Negro Leagues, and some of them who participated in the Major Leagues too. The first one is Monte Irvin. It's his autographed Hall of Fame plaque card, I should say. Monte Irvin basically played 11 years, 37 through 48 in the Negro Leagues, and then made it to the New York Giants in 49, part of those teams in 51 and 54 that won the pennant for the Giants. Was out in left field when Willie Mays made the catch in Game 1 of the 1954 World Series, and you ever get the chance to watch the Ken Burns baseball documentary, Irvin tells a hysterical story about that. And I guess after Mays made the catch, threw it back in, and at the end of the inning, they were running in together. And Monte Irvin looked over at Willie Mays and said, "I didn't think you had a chance in that." And Willie said to him, "I had that all the way. What are you talking about?" So just a little humorous story I think everyone will find funny, and, breaking down one of the greatest catches in baseball history. And one other thing I learned watching that documentary and speaking to a couple other people who played against Willie Mays had a tell. You knew he was going to catch a ball. If he did this in his glove, he had it. If you go back and watch video, you'll see him. He always goes like this when he's going to make a catch. It's a fascinating little tick. I asked Bill Moose Scourin about, God rest in peace, Moose. I asked him about it. He said, yeah, oh yeah, it was there. You could see it. As soon as he went like this, you knew he had the ball. Moose played against him as a member of the Yankees in the World Series and as a member of the Dodgers. So, I'm sure he saw a lot of things. But moving on to the next player is a Negro Leaguer that I don't believe ever made it to the majors, and that's Buck Leonard. Another guy right there you can see on the Hall of Fame postcard. Another one, again, who I don't believe made it to the majors, Ray Dandridge. You can see that there. The next couple, when I say their names, I don't think I need to give any other introduction about them. The first guy was a teammate of Monte Irvin's, and the man who made the catch, yep, to Willie Mays' ball, signed by the man himself. Maybe, if not the greatest baseball player of all time, definitely in the top 2 or 3. You can't dispute that. If they use the term 5-tool player, that was Willie Mays. He could run, he could hit, he could throw, he could field, and he had power. He had it all. I mean, 660 home runs, and I don't know if you saw the story today. It might actually be revised to 661 home runs. I would like to know what his home run count would be if they included his time in the Negro Leagues. And don't forget the thing about Willie Mays, and this applies to a lot of baseball players in MLB, regardless of color. He did 2 years in Korea. So he was a rookie in 51, was in Korea 52 and 53, I believe, and then back with the New York Giants in 54. And coincidentally, they win the pennant in 51 on the shot heard around the world. Finish in out of the race in 52 and 53. Comes back in 54, wins the MVP and the pennant. And they win the World Series in 1954. So that should tell you about the significance of Willie Mays. The next guy, I have 2 items for it just because you can't say anything more. And that is, yes, Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron did play in the Negro Leagues for a couple of years before being signed as a shortstop. Yes, shortstop. For the, wait for it, Boston Braves. Yes, he was signed by the Boston Braves, who then moved to Milwaukee and became the Milwaukee Braves. And then obviously moved with them to Atlanta to become the Atlanta Braves. And then went back to Milwaukee at the end of his career to be a designated hitter for the Milwaukee Brewers. What more can you say about him? I'm curious to see how they handle stats, because if you incorporate his stats from the Negro League days, you have more home runs there. Does he pass Barry Bonds? I don't know. The issue with it is, if you really look at the Negro League stats for a lot of these guys, they don't. First off, they did not play 100 and it was 154 games back then. Obviously 162 now. They only played about 60 some odd games a year, so there's no direct way to correlate the stats with each other. I mean, one of the things I found in 1943, Josh Gibson had a batting average of 474. Think about that, 474. He almost hit 1 out of every 2. He almost got a hit out of 1 out of every 2 at-bats. Think about that. That's mind-blowing. But again, he only played in about 55 games out of roughly a 60-game schedule. And there's some question about how thorough the record-keeping was for the Negro Leagues. Are they as accurate as they can be? I mean, in baseball, you're looking at this thing with Willie Mays now where you may have another homer. It calls into question how accurate are the stats from days gone by, from 1920s, 1930s, and everything else. It's impossible to do a one-to-one correlation, which sucks in a lot of ways, because I would love to see a correlation of Babe Ruth and Josh Gibson head-to-head, what they did. It's impossible to do because they weren't playing the talent pool that everybody played in on both sides. It's on both sides of that equation. You only had baseball being, MLB being white, the Negro Leagues being black. So they weren't mixing and integrating and playing against each other. So it's impossible to tell who would be the best and everything else. Because as we know, the cream rises to the top in the competition. Would Babe Ruth have hit as many homers as he did if he had to face pitchers like Satchel Paige? I don't know. We don't know, and that's the sad thing about it. I would love to have seen that, but unfortunately, that's something we did not see, and we'll never see and we'll never know, to be completely honest about it. But there is one other thing I did want to show, just as a tribute. R.I.P. Dick Allen. I know I showed some stuff last week, but I forgot to show this as well. Autographed baseball by Dick Allen with the, with his 72 AL MVP inscription on there. R.I.P. Dick. Funny story about Dick. I went to photo day in Old Comiskey Park in 1973, and there are pictures of it, not one with Dick Allen, but with other players in the red pinstripe uniforms, which, by the way, are my favorite uniforms. But there are pictures with the red pinstripe uniforms that my mom has in an album, that I can see at any time I want, really. And I remember standing there, and it would have you on the warning track in the outfield with a rope. So you were on the dirt, they were on the grass. And again, Comiskey Park back then had an AstroTurf infield and a grass outfield. Weird configuration. And I just remember being a very young kid, seeing this menacing black man with gigantic arms covered by like a wool sweatshirt. They had long sleeves all the way down, red, all the way down, always warm. No matter what the temperature was, he had those things on. His arms were massive. And I just remember looking at him and crying in sheer terror. And I told him this story at Sox Fest. Man, this is like 15 years ago. He was at Sox Fest for one day. I told him this story, and he just started laughing. He goes, "Sorry, I scared you." That's all he could, and I was just like, I was a little kid. What the hell did I know? But R.I.P. Dick. R.I.P. Dick Allen. Let me say that because some people might make a joke of that other one, unfortunately. But R.I.P. Dick Allen. Hopefully we get you in the Hall of Fame sooner rather than later. And that's really all that I have for today. Have any comments, questions? Want to say I do a great job? Want to say I suck? Feel free. And with that, I'm out. Bang.